thoughts like this, reading things that are philosophical or mystic, gives us an avenue of perception. It opens up an avenue of perception where we could receive it. Behind all action is thought of some kind. It's the kind of ideas that we hold that make us, act the way we do. So we're thinking about the quality of the thought. And just to make a couple more points before we open it up to questions. We could look at the physical man is as each being as a unit. We keep going from the picture of the one to the picture of the many, the one and the many, and we have to fuse those two. But if we look at the individual units, each being is like fuel upon which the one life feeds in order for it to keep manifesting itself. And that happens, thereby the inner man receives as his wage and reward, Madame Blavatsky says, the possibility of accumulating additional experiences on the terrestrial plane, and of learning and retaining that experience and transcending where we are. Another thing that came up in this exploration was sort of a mathematical way of looking at this, a mathematical basis. And this one article enumerates from the One Life Para Brahm. The concept of one, to two, duality to three, a trinity. It says that there are three primary causes: Parabrahm, Sakti, and Prakriti. And this usually stands for matter. And Sakti is like, is it like the power, the energy of this? So this article takes the example of algebra and teaches us the combination, one at a time, two at a time, three at a time. To increase algebraically this way is a simple equation, 2 to the n minus 1. And if we apply this to the trinity, 2 to the third minus 1 is 8, minus 1 is 7. And this is how, in part, we get the 7 principles of nature is formed in a septenary way. So, and these 7 principles are the bases, or principles are bases or vehicles of action and correlating states. The 7 comes from the 3, which evolves from the 1. And this is just a way to show that the universe is guided by number, by by vibration, and that mathematics, how it all ties together. And if we look at the Trinity plus nature, the 3 plus 4, we still get the 7 principles, the Tetractys. And there's another, the 6 forces in nature, and the 7th, the all force or absolute. So there's different ways of breaking down the numbers, but we still arrive at really important numbers, 7, 3, and 1. And the Kabbalists, she says, in the Source of Measures, the Hebrew-Egyptian system goes on to more of that if somebody wanted to explore that. So we said that, mind, matter, and consciousness are shared between beings. It's not discrete. There's this field of sort of blending, one could say. And in Transmigration of the Life Atoms, she says that the atoms are drawn together. The vibration proceeds magnetically, that there's really two forces, repulsion and attraction. But this happens on multiple levels. So a person dies and quits the body. Those atoms are not discarded. They're used by another being, or maybe they remain somewhat inactive, but they're attracted back to the being when he incarnates again. And this was the whole principle that the Egyptians used with the whole mummification process, was that they wanted to attract they wanted to preserve those life atoms so that they could reuse them, but it happens anyway. So the same atoms clothe the body of the same monad when it is reincarnated, and the Sanskrit word for that are skandhas. And these are like the tendencies left over from the past that are attracted back to us. So we really need to think of it as a field of constant blending, that nothing is ever just discarded without recourse. There's always a return of impressions. The life atoms, that energy may transfer to an object, but then it will eventually return to us. So how we impress those life atoms is what we want to consider. And then another interesting thing is when we were talking about the Akasha, the highest storehouse of thought, it's the highest plane, and the astral field is sort of the lower end of that, where the lower selfish thoughts sort of aggregate, and there's this astral field that we all participate in, and the impressions come back to us. And this is analogous, she says, to the structure of the eye, the retina of the eye itself, between the astral field and the eye. By what is the astral light symbolized, and this is making correspondences between the universe and the human being, by the eye, and especially the retina and its mode of action. Because the astral light receives the pictures of all events and things, and on the retina are received the images of all objects that pass before us. So we find that these images on the retina remain for a specific period, and it's capable of being measured. And they go through certain changes before completely fading away. So we can extend the result of this observation to the astral light, and we can assume through correspondence and analogy that it goes through similar changes in respect to the pictures. So from this it follows that the mass or totality of pictures made during a life cycle by all the beings in it are retained on this great sort of retina, and they have a period at the end of which they will have faded away, but nothing's ever lost, so that impression is sort of reflected back to humanity. So we get back what we put out. What goes around comes around. And I think we'll open it up for questions and thoughts.
Retention of transcendence. We come across that word from time to time. What does that entail? What function is that?
Do you mean what principles are involved? What does transcendence mean in terms of the human experience? Well, what do you think transcendence means?
I would something like to leave the sphere of the personal or the fourth principle and sort of rise to the sixth principle or something like that, transcend
Yeah,
as a verb.
yeah, it suggests going above. So it seems like transcendence would be the essence of something. The like if we think of Madame Blavatsky says the secret doctrine is written in glyphs and symbols. That would be the essence, the kernel of the matter, and it's the most refined part of it. So transcendence would perhaps be that in relation to our experience, and it would involve, it seems, the higher principles because it's more reflective of archetypes. The particulars are gone, but the essential kernel of truth is preserved, and therefore it more closely mirrors higher planes of consciousness that where we all share, really, are all a part of us, that we are essentially that thou art. Just forget.
So the retention is to just sort of stay there.
So retention, retaining that becomes a permanent experience of the ego. It can never be taken away. So transcending or raising our consciousness through self-induced and self-devised efforts becomes a permanent acquirement of the ego. And that's why it says that a man can rise higher than the Dian Chohans because they restrict themselves to a certain sort of they're bound by laws of nature, as we all are, but they perhaps become a force of nature in a certain manner, whereas we have the ability to acquire all of that. The student doesn't understand it, but that's basically what's said, if anybody wants to elaborate.
That was another question.
Yeah, would you elaborate on that?
I just wanted to make a comment that, in response to your question, is that we do transcend every night when we fall asleep, but it is automatic. In other words, the soul knows what it is doing, but the personality is asleep.
Doesn't know what to do with it.
So what your explanation, the speaker's explanation, is saying that when you learn to do it consciously through meditation, that's when you transcend to buddhimanasic states of being, and you retain the experience that you go through when you come back. And that is what meditation does, is what you commented on. But we do it automatically because we go from waking to dreaming to sleep to beyond deep sleep, which you put on the board as turiya, which is that the spiritual essence of things. So we commune with all these higher aspects of our being every night. We go to the gods, in other words. But when we come back, we don't retain it.
And if we could do it consciously, we could sort of get to those higher states more knowingly. That's a good word. More, consciously. It would be a faster development than just letting it happen naturally. It would be self-induced and self-devised.
Yeah, but I think it also has a tremendous benefit to humanity that you can bring your spiritual experiences to earth and solve problems with it. Because you said Akasha is the report of all of our experiences as humanity. So if we have problems, the answers are written there too. So that would be really tremendous benefit for everyone if we could bring our experience.
Yeah.
When you say we can do it consciously in our current state of development, right?
Yes.
If we do the kinds of things you're talking about, eventually we will be conscious of all of these things, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that was read said, maybe not all in a hazy way, but wherever one applied one's consciousness, it would be all seeing and all knowing.